Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be working on the box model in HTML and CSS. We're going to understand the HTML box model. We're going to find those box model dimensions in a browser. We'll apply those rules for box model in CSS, and we'll style up some borders, which takes a little bit more work than the other parts of the box model. All right, so our vocabulary for today: the box model, margin, border, and padding. Pretty simple. All right, getting into the box model. The idea is that every element in HTML has a box that wraps around it, and it is the actual contents that you're expecting to see. The padding is next, and then the border, and then the margin. So here's what that looks like. You've got the contents, you've got some padding around that is some space, and then you've got the border followed by the margin. So the padding is the space between those contents and the border. The border is that line around the box between the padding and the margin. Oftentimes it's visible, sometimes it's not. You get a lot of options in how to style that border. And then finally you've got the margin, that is the space between the border and the next element to the sides or up and down. So to view the box model on Chrome, you want to right click on the page, choose Inspect, click Computed. You can kind of see that down over here, right? Once this window comes up, and this might be at the bottom instead of on the side. And then finally, you're going to choose the element in the HTML that you're interested in, or you can use this selector that's up here, and then you can go and click on the element you want. Otherwise, you got to kind of go through the HTML and find the one that's the most interesting to you. And then what you get is this diagram down here, which looks a lot like our other diagram. And it shows us the dimensions of everything. The element that it's on right now, this H2, that says the CSS box model. Its contents are 804 and change by 48. The padding is none, the border is none, and then the margin has 10 pixels at the top and the bottom, but nothing on the left and right. In Firefox, it's very, very similar. Right-click on the page, choose Inspect, click the layout, choose the element in, or choose the selector. So they look almost exactly the same. This diagram looks a little bit different, but it gives you all the information. Notice that it doesn't use dashes for zeros, it actually gives you a 0. In Safari, it's a little different. By default, developer controls are turned off in Safari, so you have to start by turning them on. If you go into the Safari menu, select Preferences, click Advanced, check the Show Develop menu in the bar, and I'll hop over to a Safari window now. And I've already turned it on, but I can turn it off in here. So if I go to the Safari window, go to Preferences, and then down here under Advanced, so it probably starts in General, so you click on Advanced, come down here, Show Develop menu in the menu bar, make sure that's checked, and you're going to see right up there, you're going to see a change right here. Right now it's Bookmarks and Window. It's Bookmarks Develop in Window. And once you have that, you can right click and choose Inspect Element. This pops up. It might also, again, pop up down here instead. And so it might look something like this to start. But what you're looking for is the Elements tab here and the Computed piece here. And this is what that diagram looks like. And so I'm going to throw that back over to the right. So you can see that if I choose, let's see, our chooser is in this one, this thing. So let's say I choose that picture right there. It's going to find it here, and then it'll show me which things are on. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at. We'll go back to our PowerPoint, and then this, of course, has the descriptions on how to do it. Right-click on the page, choose Inspect Element, click that Elements tab. It's probably selected by default. Choose Computed, and then the selector is that sort of crosshairs up there. All right, now we want to apply rules for the box model. If you want all 4 sides the same size, then you just need to put one element in. You say margin is the rule, or is the property, and 5 pixels is the value, or 10 pixels, that px means pixels, and you can do that for padding as well. We'll get to border a little bit later. The contents can be adjusted with just the width and the height property. We've done that before, so I didn't include that here. If you want to do it one side at a time, you do a dash and then the side you're interested in. Margin dash top, 5 pixels, margin dash right, 8 pixels, and so on. And you'll see that for the purpose of demonstrating later, I've made these all different, right? So this would have a top of 5 pixels, a bottom of 10 pixels, a right of 8 pixels, and a left of 3 pixels. All right, so there's shorthands as well. If I want to do all 4 sides and I don't want to make 4 separate lines, I can do it all at once. I can say margin 5 pixels, space 8 pixels, space 10 pixels, space 3 pixels. And it starts at the top and goes around clockwise. So if I'm looking at it from your view, right? So top, right, bottom, left. Or I can do that with 2. If I want the top and bottom to be the same and the left and the right to be the same, then I can say 5 pixels for top and bottom, space 8 pixels for left and right. Okay, now styling up some borders. I would want to, there are 3 properties to borders: the width, the color, and the style. So the shorthand for it is the most commonly used one, border 5 pixels, space solid, space blue. So that is the width, the style, and the color in that order. Should have put that in that order too. Okay, some border styles that are possible. You should mess around with these: ridge, outset, inset, groove, double, dotted, dashed, and solid. Okay, border styles for one side. If I want to do a one side of the border, it's border dash, and then whichever side it is, dash, whatever the property is. So border left style is solid, border right color is green, and so on. And this is pretty rare to do these kind of things. There are times when you change a particular part of it, and then that's when it becomes useful. Okay, so that takes care of that. Let's hop over to a Replit and take a look. So the Replit I'm going to be working with today is called 1.5 Box Model Demo. And I'll go ahead and drop that script out. And I'm going to go ahead and put a header to show that. And then I'm just going to put a div. We haven't even done anything with IDs yet. This is the div. Okay. And then if I come into styles.css, I can style a div. Let's start by making its width 400 pixels, its height 400 pixels, and its background color of blue so that we can see it. Okay. Boom. Pop that out and we get a 400 by 400 box that says this is the div. Let's go ahead and make its color white so we can see that. Okay, so that's a little bit clearer. That's our header. This is the div we're going to mess around with, and we need something else next to it so that we can see a little bit about what's going on with our margins. Now, if we go here, it's a little bit harder with block elements. Maybe should have done this with maybe A tags or something, but that's all right. I'm going to go ahead and put a paragraph here. I know better than that. This is a paragraph. There we go. And I'm going to make that paragraph background color of, let's go with that blanched almond. That sounds fantastic. And we see that it shows up right down there, right? And to be sure that nothing else is going on, let's do a margin of 0 pixels on that. The padding shouldn't matter on our test piece. Okay, so you can see that that paragraph by default had some margin and we just got rid of it. So now we're working on this div that we're interested in. Let's go ahead and put a border that is 10 pixels solid red. There we go. So we see here's our contents and here's our border. We don't have any padding yet, so we see that the text is right up against that. We want a little bit of padding to space that out a little bit more nicely. And here we go. So now we've got the box got a little bit bigger and we've got this piece here. Finally, we'll drop in some margins and we'll say margin of 20 pixels. We'll make it nice and big for the sake of making it clear here in our demonstration. And it doesn't seem to have taken because I put a semicolon there instead of a colon. And we'll reload. We still didn't get anything. Why didn't we get anything? Because I didn't hit the right key. Sometimes it takes a few tries. There we go. Now we've got 20 pixels all the way around. I can make this, and we'll take advantage of this space here to show our left and right. I'm going to say that it's 20 pixels top and bottom, and only 5 pixels left and right. And we'll reload, and this should shift straight over. Okay, so we start to see how that works. We can make this dashed instead. Reload. Okay, and then if I want to change one side, I can take advantage of the order of things. So in CSS, the order of the rules matter. So I've got this border here, and then I just want to change, I'm going to say border right style is going to be solid, and I'm going to make that border right color. Let's go with blue violet. Looks pretty good. That ought to look appropriately awful for what we're doing. Reload, and now we've got a solid blue violet piece here, and the rest stay the same. I want you to notice something here. Right down in this area right here, the angle on those becomes really important later on. So it's important to note that the shape of a border is that it shares a 45-degree portion of the corner. Okay, so later on we'll take advantage of that to make triangles just with CSS. It's a pretty good trick. So that takes care of padding, margin, and border. And that's essentially the box model. Let's take a look at what we got here. If we right click and we inspect, we're going to talk a little bit about calculations really quickly. So we go to computed. Remember that my selected size was 400 by 400. So it's 400 by 400, that's the contents. Padding is 5 pixels all around. My border is 10 pixels all around. And my margin is 5 to the left and right, and 20 to the top and bottom. So the total space this is taking vertically is 20 times 2 is 40, plus 10 times 2 is 20, so 40 plus 20 is 60, plus 5 and 5 makes that 70, so 470 vertically. Or I can go side to side and I make 10 off, or 30 off of that, right? So 5, 15, 20, 420, 425, 435, 440. Okay, so 440 by 470. There is one way that we can manipulate that a little bit, and we can put in this box sizing declaration, and we can say specify that it's the content box, which it currently is, or we can say it's got to be the border box, and we'll see what difference that makes now. So I come here and I reload, and we'll see that my content now is only 370 by 370, and that means that for the visible distance all the way out to the end of the border is 400 by 400. If I don't want that, I can just take it off, because content box is the default, and those are your two options. Okay, so I think that we have completed our objectives here. Let's go back to our PowerPoint, and we can click on back and look at our objectives and make sure that I'm right. We looked at ways to look at the box model in there. So we wanted to understand the box model. I think we've done that. Every item in HTML is a box with these properties. In order to access some of them, they have to be displayed as block, and we'll look at how to do that later. Always you can try it and see if it works out. We wanted to find box model dimensions in a browser, and we looked at 3 different browsers. Sorry, Edge, you haven't quite reached that level, but I'm going to do that yet. Applied rules for box model in CSS, and we styled borders. Remember that box model is the box of the contents, padding, border, and margin around every element. The margin is the space between that element and the next element. The border is the line that goes around, and the padding is the space between the contents and the border. And I think that's everything that we did today. Thanks, everybody.